Security guard humiliated him in front of everyone. Now he signs their paychecks. The lobby of the Grandeur Royale Hotel in downtown Chicago smelled like money. Marble floors so polished you could see your reflection. Crystal chandeliers that caught the light and threw it across the ceiling like scattered diamonds. Leather chairs that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Everything about that place whispered one message to anyone who walked through its gilded doors. You either belong here or you don't. Marcus Webb was 17 years old, wearing a blue hoodie and jeans, carrying a brown paper bag that smelled like fried chicken and biscuits. He did not look like he belonged. But here's what nobody in that lobby knew. Not the guests in their designer suits, not the staff in their pressed uniforms, not the security guard who was already watching him from across the room with narrowed eyes. Marcus had every right to be there. His grandmother, Evelyn Webb, had worked as a housekeeper at the Grandeur Royale for 22 years. 22 years of making other people's beds. 22 years of folding other people's towels into perfect swans. 22 years of scrubbing bathrooms until they sparkled for strangers who never once learned her name. That evening, Evelyn had called Marcus in a voice so tired it broke his heart. "Baby, I forgot my dinner again. I'm on a double shift. I don't think I can make it to break without something to eat." Marcus hadn't hesitated for a single second. He'd cooked her meal himself. Fried chicken the way she taught him, with the crispy crust she liked, biscuits from scratch, a little container of her favorite hot sauce tucked in the side of the bag. He'd taken 2 buses across the city to get to her, because that's what you do for the woman who raised you. The confrontation, he'd barely made it 10 steps into the lobby when he felt it. That feeling. Every black kid in America knows that feeling. The moment when the room shifts, when the temperature drops by a few degrees, when you become suddenly and uncomfortably aware that someone has decided you are a problem before you've done a single thing wrong. The security guard's name was Derek Holloway. Big man, purple uniform. The kind of guy who had spent his whole career deciding who deserved to be somewhere and who didn't. He crossed the lobby in long strides, pointing his finger before he'd even reached Marcus. Hey, you, stop right there." Marcus stopped, clutched the paper bag tighter. "Can I help you, sir?" Marcus said carefully, calmly, the way his grandmother had taught him to speak to authority. Polite, measured, giving nothing that could be used against you. "What are you doing in here?" "I'm bringing dinner to my grandmother. She works here. She's a housekeeper on the—" "I'm going to need you to leave." The lobby had gone quiet. Marcus could feel the eyes on him. The couple by the elevator, the woman at the check-in desk, the bellman in the red uniform standing near the gold elevator doors, watching without moving. "Sir, I'm just dropping off food. She's on a double shift and she forgot her." "I said leave." Derek Holloway's voice had gotten louder, harder, designed to embarrass, designed to make a point. "This is a private establishment. We don't allow—" "You don't allow what?" Marcus asked quietly. The words hung in the air. Derek Holloway looked at the paper bag, looked at Marcus's hoodie, looked at his sneakers. And then he did the thing that Marcus would remember for the rest of his life. He reached out and knocked the bag from Marcus's hands. The paper tore. Fried chicken scattered across the marble floor. Crumbs and pieces of biscuit spread out in a messy arc across that perfect, polished surface. And Derek Holloway pointed at the door. "Get out, before I call the police." The walkout Marcus looked at the food on the floor. He looked at the bag his grandmother would never get to eat from. He looked around the lobby, at all the faces watching him, some with pity, some with discomforts, some just watching with the blank expression of people who have decided that whatever is happening is not their problem. He did not cry. He did not yell. He did not give Derek Holloway the reaction the man was clearly looking for. He bent down slowly, deliberately, and he picked up what he could of the food. He put it back in the torn bag as best he could. He stood up straight, and then he walked out of that lobby with his head held high. Outside, he called his grandmother. "Grandma," his voice broke. "Just a little, just enough. I'm sorry. I tried to bring your food, but they wouldn't let me in. He knocked it out of my hands." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When Evelyn Webb spoke, her voice was not angry. It was something worse than angry. It was the voice of a woman who had seen this before, who had lived this before, who had learned over decades to absorb these moments like punches, to fold them up and put them somewhere deep inside where they couldn't touch the parts of her she still needed to function. "I know, baby," she said. "I know. Go home. I'll be okay." Marcus stood on the sidewalk outside the Grandeur Royale Hotel, looking up at its glass facade, at the gold lettering above the doors, at the warm light spilling from the lobby onto the cold Chicago street. He memorized it, all of it. What happens after you're told you don't belong? Most people would have gone home that night and buried the memory, filed it away with all the other moments of humiliation that life hands you when you're young and broke and the world hasn't yet learned your name. Marcus Webb was not most people. Something happened to him on that sidewalk. Not rage. Rage burns out. Not bitterness. Bitterness poisons the person holding it more than anyone else. What happened to Marcus Webb was something quieter and more dangerous to everyone who had ever underestimated him. He made a decision. He went home that night, sat at his grandmother's kitchen table, the same table where she'd helped him with homework, where she'd told him stories about his grandfather, where she'd pressed his shirts every Sunday morning before church, and he opened his laptop. He started reading about real estate. Not casually, not the way you look something up when you're curious, the way you study when you are hungry, when you are motivated by something that lives in your chest and won't let you sleep. He read about hotel acquisition, about commercial real estate investment, about how buildings like the Grandeur Royale were owned, operated, leveraged, and valued. He read about REITs and private equity and cap rates and NOI. He read about men and women who had started with nothing and built portfolios that made the Grandeur Royale look like a roadside motel. He read until 3 a.m., then he got up and made his grandmother breakfast for when she got home from her shift. The education. Marcus had always been smart. His teachers had told him so, the way teachers sometimes tell kids they're smart without actually doing much to channel that intelligence toward anything real. But now he had a direction. He applied for every scholarship he could find. He got into the University of Illinois on a partial scholarship and worked 2 jobs to cover the rest. Early morning shifts at a bakery, weekend shifts at a parking garage downtown. He studied finance. He studied business law. He took every real estate elective his university offered. In his second year, he cold emailed 47 real estate professionals in Chicago asking for 15 minutes of their time. 6 responded. 3 actually met with him. 1, a woman named Patricia Okafor, a Nigerian-American property developer who had built a mid-sized commercial portfolio from scratch starting in the 1990s, looked across the table at this 20-year-old kid in a thrift store blazer and saw something she recognized. She became his mentor. "Real estate is not about money at the start," she told him during their first real meeting, over coffee at her downtown office. "At the start, it's about relationships and information. You need to know more about a property than the person selling it. You need to build trust before you need favors. Start small, be patient, be relentless." Marcus listened. He did not waste her time. He asked smart questions and then he went away and acted on the answers. The climb he started small. His first deal was a duplex in a working-class neighborhood on the south side. Not glamorous, not the kind of thing that makes the business pages. He and 2 college friends pooled money they'd saved and borrowed carefully, purchased the property, renovated it themselves on weekends, and rented it out. It almost broke them 3 times. A contractor who took their deposit and disappeared. A furnace that failed in February. A tenant dispute that required a lawyer they could barely afford. But they got through it. They learned. And when they sold that duplex 2 years later, they made enough profit to do it again, this time with a 4-unit building. Then a small commercial strip. Then a partnership with Patricia's firm on a mid-rise apartment rehabilitation project. Marcus Webb was 28 years old when he was featured for the first time in a Chicago business publication, a small mention in a roundup of emerging real estate investors to watch. His grandmother cut it out and put it on her refrigerator next to a photo of him at his college graduation. He was 31 when his firm, Webb Capital Group, closed its first 8-figure deal. He was 34 when his portfolio crossed the 9-figure mark. He was very, very careful about what he did with that success. He didn't buy a flashy car. He didn't move into a penthouse. He moved his grandmother out of the apartment she'd lived in for 30 years and bought her a house. A real house, with a yard and a porch and a kitchen big enough to cook the Sunday dinner she'd been making for the family since before Marcus was born. "You didn't have to do all this," Evelyn told him, standing in the doorway of her new kitchen, her eyes bright. "Yes, I did," Marcus said. The call, he was 36 years old when his phone rang with a number he didn't recognize. A commercial real estate broker in Chicago, reaching out on behalf of a private equity group that was divesting a portfolio of hospitality properties. Several hotels across the Midwest. Various conditions, various valuations, including one property in downtown Chicago, the Grandeur Royale. Marcus sat with the phone against his ear for a long moment after the broker finished his pitch. "Send me the information package," Marcus said. He sat in his office that evening, the corner office with the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, and he opened the file on his laptop. The Grandeur Royale Hotel, 156 rooms, built 1987, renovated 2004, current occupancy trending below market average, ownership group looking to exit, asking price negotiable. He looked at the photographs in the listing, the marble floors, the crystal chandeliers, the gold elevator doors. He called Patricia Okafor. "Tell me you're not being sentimental," she said, after he explained. "I'm not," he said. "The numbers work. The location is strong. Occupancy is down because the current ownership hasn't invested in the property. The bones are excellent. It's a legitimate acquisition." A pause. "And?" Patricia said, a longer pause. "And I have a personal reason," Marcus admitted. "Then make sure the personal reason doesn't make you stupid about the price," she said. "Get me the financials. We'll look at it together." Coming home, the acquisition took 8 months. Due diligence, negotiations, financing arrangements, legal review. The kind of slow, meticulous work that real wealth is actually made of. Not the dramatic moments, but the thousands of hours of careful, grinding labor that happen off-screen. On the day the deal closed, Marcus drove downtown alone. He stood on the sidewalk outside the Grandeur Royale Hotel. The same sidewalk where he had stood at 17 years old, holding a torn paper bag, watching the light from the lobby spill onto the street. He stood there for a long time. Then he walked through the front doors. The lobby was the same. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, the faint smell of wealth and carefully maintained surfaces. The staff was assembled in the ballroom for the new ownership introduction, a standard practice when a property changes hands. 53 employees ranging from the general manager to the housekeeping staff to the kitchen team. Marcus walked in. He stood at the front of the room. He looked out at the faces looking back at him. "My name is Marcus Webb," he said. "I'm the new owner of this hotel." He paused. "Some of you have worked here for a long time. I want you to know that I'm not coming in here to tear things down. I'm coming in here to build something better." He paused again. "My grandmother worked here for 22 years. Her name was Evelyn Webb. Some of you might remember her." A woman near the back of the room, a housekeeper, maybe 60 years old, put her hand over her mouth. "I used to try to bring her dinner when she worked double shifts," Marcus continued. "Once a security guard knocked the food out of my hands and threw me out of this building." The room was absolutely silent. "I'm telling you that story," Marcus said. "Not for revenge, not for drama. I'm telling you that story because I want every single person in this room to understand what I believe about this business. Dignity is not optional. It is not a luxury. It is the foundation of everything we do here." He looked around the room. Every guest who walks through that door deserves to be treated with respect. And so does every person who works here, every housekeeper, every dishwasher, every maintenance worker, every security guard. A long pause. "We're going to do things differently here. Starting now." The grandmother's return 3 weeks after the acquisition closed, Marcus arranged a private dinner. Just him and his grandmother. At a table in the Grandeur Royale's finest dining room, which he had reserved exclusively for the evening. Evelyn Webb walked into that dining room in a dress she'd bought for the occasion. Navy blue, the color she always said made her feel like herself. She looked at the table set for two, at the chandelier above it, at the view of the Chicago skyline through the tall windows. She looked at her grandson. "Marcus," she said. Her voice was full. He had dinner this time. He had arranged for the kitchen to prepare everything himself. Fried chicken the way she liked it, biscuits from scratch, her favorite hot sauce in a small silver bowl on the side. The same meal he tried to bring her 19 years ago. Evelyn Webb sat at that table in the hotel where she had spent 22 years cleaning floors and making beds, and she ate dinner with her grandson who now owned the building. She cried. He let her. Then she straightened up the way she always did,